Thank you for joining this EnsO Earth presentation. We will be exploring the possibility of increasing municipal water capacity by incorporating the genius of nature into our designs. Net positive water is one of those design philosophies. It is exciting to see that the municipalities are now looking laterally for solutions. As this subject is vast, and we can literally present for hours on each of these sections, we have done a very high-level overview of the design philosophies, in order for everyone to understand the basic underlying principles. We will assume that nature-based design is still a relatively new subject for most people in the room. How do we harness the genius of nature to solve human development challenges? By learning from nature, we can move beyond sustainable and into regenerative design. Biomimicry, living future, ecological engineering, circularity, blue-green infrastructure, water-sensitive urban design, SUDS, low-impact engineering, net positive water, are now all known as nature-based solutions. A little bit about Denise Engelbrecht, the founder and CEO of EnsO Earth. She is an entrepreneur by nature, with a huge passion to do things differently. Some would even call her disruptive. She stumbled into engineering as a career, but we will not get into that now, except for the fact that she loves what she does. Her career started as a designer in 1986, and spans a wide array of civil engineering sectors. But it was only in the last decade that her career started to shift into the realm of regenerative design. 2009 was her first encounter with biomimicry, and she was privileged to see Janine Benyus presenting live in Cape Town. She walked away from that presentation thinking, how did we get it so wrong? The seed had been planted. And the journey began towards this new approach to designing our world. But it was hard to integrate this thinking into mainstream engineering. For about 5 years she struggled with this concept, and it finally culminated in creating the non-profit company to promote an alternative way to design and build our world. But it evolved again when we became involved in the living future work and net positive water. 2020 she unified the for-profit and non-profit under one brand, EnsO Earth. Then COVID happened. What COVID did for us was allow us to pause while the rest of the world caught up. But we are now starting to emerge post-COVID, and we are all looking for better solutions. EnsO Earth has a shared vision to ensure the future for the next generations. We are a life-focused organization that integrates the genius of nature to solve human development challenges. We focus on regenerative design solutions that promote clean air, water, and food. But it is really water that binds them together. Biomimicry is a perfect gateway into this realm of regenerative design thinking. With 3.8 billion years of R&D behind her, nature has perfected what works and what does not work. What works has remained, and what did not work is now extinct. We need to move away from the mindset of learning about nature, towards learning from nature. Because nature has already figured out all the conditions conducive to life. All we need to do is mimic them. So what can nature teach us? There are 3 basic levels of innovation that we can learn from nature. We can imitate her forms. We can learn her recipes. But more importantly, we need to learn her systems. As she elegantly creates the illusion of infinity from finite resources by upcycling and recycling. The most powerful designs incorporate all 3 of these levels. The new emerging engineering division is ecological engineering. While this division is globally recognized as an independent sector, in South Africa it falls within the civil engineering division. Ecological engineering focuses on systems thinking and creating regenerative design solutions. Living machines are the practice of using ecological principles to clean wastewater, without the use of harmful chemicals. Indirectly also restoring the downstream ecosystems. This is a beautiful and dramatic example of the Baima Canal in China. This polluted waterway was transformed and reclaimed for people to use recreationally. Our relationship with water reveals our linear economy mindset that treats resources as infinite. But nature teaches us a different system, one that is circular in design and regenerative, as it upcycles byproducts and marginalizes real waste. Waste does not really exist in nature. It is really a byproduct of human behavior that has created chemistry that nature does not identify and cannot recycle or process. Most of nature's designs are closed-loop designs that operate on solar and gravity, while sustaining other ecosystems by making oxygen, water, and food. But before we go further, we need to understand why clean water is so important, and why it needs to be valued as a resource. As human beings, we need clean air, clean water, and food to survive. We will not live if any one of these three life requirements are not met. So in order to align with nature, we need to understand how nature designs our water system. The pre-development water balance sets the targets that we need to aim for, in order to stay within the ecological boundaries of a site, with the understanding that no two sites will be the same. As topography, rainfall, soil, and vegetation influence the final natural water balance. Our current linear design practices disrupt this natural water balance, resulting in extreme drought or flooding. We have indirectly created our own challenges by introducing large impermeable surfaces and not retaining enough vegetation in the final design. We also import large amounts of potable water into the system and then discharge large amounts of wastewater from the system, further disrupting the natural cycle. Without meaning to, we have created our own problems. We have created urban deserts with these large impermeable surfaces that result in flooding. We instantly contaminate potable water by literally flushing it down the toilet. And then we do not value our wastewater, which is a nutrient-rich byproduct that can be upcycled for irrigation purposes. With less than 10% of all South Africa's wastewater plants operating effectively, we are literally contaminating the downstream user's potable water source with sewage. By going back to nature, we can start to design communities that are water sensitive and align with the natural water balance of the site. We need to pay attention to the runoff, infiltration, and evaporation. As water is a finite element, how do we create the illusion of infinite water the way nature has for billions of years? Water is the promise of life, and can be linked to all the UN Sustainable Goals. Some directly, and others indirectly, as virtual water. And even quality education. Because young girls are now able to attend school, instead of harvesting water for their communities. The true value of water lies in its ability to be regenerated over and over. If a water droplet could tell its life story, it would have lived through many lifetimes, from the dawn of time until now. And it will continue its journey for many more lifetimes into the future. As we understand that water needs to flow to unlock its true value. Does this illusion of infinite water lie in how efficiently we can reduce the cycle of regeneration? Is the solution a human water cycle, overlaying the natural water cycle, that does not disrupt nature? This quote from Bucky really makes us stop and think. Is the answer in this statement? Should we be struggling to change the problem? Or do we need to create a new model that will make the old one obsolete? And this diagram demonstrates that beautifully. To move from degenerative designs, away from this old school, linear design of resources, we need to integrate our human consciousness with nature. But the larger the scale, the more aligned with nature we would need to become. When working in the realm of water, it covers all levels of scale, from a single organism to the entire planet. The big question is always what is net zero and what is net positive if we are dealing with a finite resource. The difference is what allows us to move beyond sustainable to regenerative, creating this illusion of infinite water. Net zero occurs when the water consumed is the same as the amount of water that is recycled. And net positive is when the water recycled is greater than the water consumed. At a global level, South Africa's municipal water usage is almost 3 times greater than the global average. And this means we have capacity to improve our water efficiency. Once we understand that our true domestic potable requirements are in the vicinity of about 40% of current domestic water usage, we will see that we are already over the tipping point. There are many factors that will influence the final water balance, and some projects will be better suited than others to be net positive water. But in designing the living building project, we realized how easy it was to create a new regenerative model. But that was only the key to unlock a far bigger picture. The real challenge is, how do we scale this, and what will that new model look like? Is there an integrated hybrid solution that will ensure water security for everyone, regardless of economic water scarcity, non-revenue water, and aging infrastructure? What does a decentralized and distributed network look like? But more importantly, can we actually live off-grid? Well, 400 kilometers above Earth, for the past 2 decades, people have been living on the International Space Station. It does not get more remote or off-grid than that. It is a completely unnatural environment. Tanks of water cannot be constantly shipped up to the International Space Station. There are no water tankers or honeysuckers arriving at regular intervals. The station has a complex water system that harvests every last drop of available liquid from the environment. This leaves astronauts drinking a filtered mixture of recycled shower water, sweat, and pee. So why on earth can we not seem to solve the challenges in Africa? The technology does exist, and has been supporting life in space for more than 2 decades. But it is not economically viable yet. Or is it? Technology has advanced dramatically in the past 20 years, but we can also enlist nature to help us. And in principle, we have just designed an International Space Station at Corlett Drive. A building that can harvest all its needs within the footprint of the site. Of the 600 globally certified living buildings at the time, only 50 had been net positive water certified. We are now on track to build a living building seeking net positive water certification, with the return on investment projected to be in the vicinity of 12.5% versus 7.5% for conventional buildings. So we might well be at that economic tipping point now. So what makes the living building net positive water different to any other certification process? The building must mimic the natural hydrological conditions. 100% of the project's water needs must be supplied on site. The water supply for the building, including recycled water, must be treated appropriately for its intended use, without the use of harmful chemicals. This is the one that really defines the living building for me. Without the use of harmful chemicals. For both potable and wastewater. In my opinion, this is probably the highest water certification process in the world. If we do all of the above, then we can ensure clean water resources for future generations. And this is why we are so passionate about net positive water. Net positive water is a holistic, systems design approach to water management. But in order to create change, we have to aim for the targets set by the pre-development conditions, paying attention to water supply, wastewater reclamation, and stormwater management. We do have videos on YouTube that talks more in depth about the project, and we will be happy to share those links with you. What I really want to discuss is, how do we start to leverage this at a scale that will build resilience in the municipal system? The Living Future have already started to work on the scaling of this concept, with the Living Community Challenge. To date, there are 20 projects in the US that are being certified. While there are many certification programs for green buildings, there are not many programs that are addressing this at a community infrastructure scale. One of the key factors that will enable this hybrid system to work is that the off-grid buildings are proposed as government facilities, schools, industrial projects, and corporate buildings. This allows the formal entities to manage the privatized networks and eliminate health risk of poorly managed or failing infrastructure. By creating a closed-loop design, we can transfer responsibility back to the manufacturing industries to manage their water usage and wastewater internally, preventing downstream contamination. This can be expanded to include eco-estates and gated communities, effectively freeing up capacity in the municipal systems to service the population that cannot afford a privatized network. The value add from this off-grid design approach is the expansion of the municipal bulk supply reach without additional infrastructure costs. The design that we implemented at Corlett Drive also incorporated the option for seamless municipal backup, further increasing resilience of the system during maintenance periods. And then there is the added benefits of green belts and urban farming that can be introduced by upcycling the reclaimed wastewater. the restoration of ecosystems, the reduction of flooding. But the biggest benefit is the containment of contamination by designing a closed-loop system. Our commitment to this process is to assist municipalities in identifying possible intervention points that will enable them to move towards a hybrid network. As specialized consultants, we also assist developers in adopting ecological design solutions. We also teach these design principles in order to maximize the adoption of this solution, to ensure water security for future generations. Please feel free to reach out to us should you wish to engage further with us.